Thank you for that, Kerry. Welcome, everyone. As I said, we're very thrilled to have you here on our third webinar, Your Zone of Crazy. Together with me, I have amazing facilitators, Kerry and Avril. You'll see we are unique individuals from different organizations. And what pulls us together is our passion for emotional intelligence, which is about learning to be smarter with feelings. So our deep drives is around being able to make an impact where people learn to practice emotional intelligence. And you will see as we continue today that our approach based on our organization that we are affiliated with, which is 6 Seconds Global, is about making a meaningful contribution where we make emotional intelligence practical. I'm going to hand over to Avril and Kerry to introduce themselves before we continue.
Okay, so I'll jump in. Thank you, Bongi. And yeah, we, as Bongi said, we're independent organizations. So I'm the owner of EQ in Action and the preferred partner for 6 Seconds. And that has been our binding sort of thread, is that we all certified through 6 Seconds as facilitators and assessors. And we are all equally passionate about what we do and the whole emotions driving people concept. So very excited to facilitate with these two business owners and EQ facilitators.
Thank you. And I'm Kerry Lynn Curtin, and also a pleasure to be here today. So although I had been training and have been training in the EQ space probably for 20 years, in about 2014 or 15, when I joined one of my first sessions with Avril, where she was training on the 6 Seconds tools, and it really was transformational. It took all of my my devotion to getting practical stuff to my clients, and it really just opened up doors for that. And that's what I'm excited about today's session, because it's one of those tools that does exactly that. And I hope you feel the same sense of excitement as we go through today. And we've got an exciting offer for you at the end as well, if you stay joining. Thank you. Over to you, back to you, Bongi.
So why are we here today? It sounds like just 4 words: understanding our unique wiring. Today, as we've heard, our topic is about understanding our zone of crazy to help us navigate something that is quite unique, how our brains process information. We all know that we live in a chaotic world. Sometimes within our internal space, we experience chaos. We experience moments where we're responding on autopilot, where we would rather have responded instead of reacting. So today is about helping understand what happens behind the scenes in our brains, where the engine that allows us to respond in a certain way or react in a certain way helps us to navigate all of that. So today is really about, short and simple, at the heart of today is understanding my brain and maximizing my potential. So it's not about changing ourselves, it's about getting to that. So why does this matter? Why do we taking time off to engage with you in understanding this? I'm going to share a very short personal story. And as you would have heard from Kerry, we all have personal stories. There's something that got us here together, but also specifically in navigating our emotions when it comes to emotional intelligence. So when I started my journey, one of my teachers and mentors is Avril. It was in Devon, where I had the training to start my journey in being accredited. But behind that, the personal reason was because I was seeing this cluttered emotions that were not channeled in a way that helps me to navigate my emotions so that they work for me. They're my best resource. So what I've found with these tools is that they're very, very practical, from a place of understanding why I behave the way that I do, and therefore what are the actions that I can take to move forward. And one of my big aha moments, and I'm saying this to you so that you can, as Avril takes you through, you can start tapping into what is it in it for me, so that I can improve the way that I show up in the world. So one of my aha moments when I did my very first assessment with 6 seconds was I realized that when I experience an emotional hijack, those who have attended the previous webinars will remember we did a session on this, is that when I will experience the emotional hijack, I would forget about my big picture. So for example, if I'm having a very serious conflict with Avril, I would forget about the importance of this relationship when I'm feeling those emotions of how could she say this to me? How could she be so rude? So my relationships with my work as well with others were a little bit dicey as a result of not knowing what's going on emotional and having an intentionality in managing the chaos that takes place inside. So the intention about today is about taking that confusion, if you even remember the last 2 sessions, and creating clarity. And today is about you witnessing and testing that too. Cool. So what are we going to explore? It's how our brains process information and make decisions and find motivation. One of these in my stories was, where is my motivation coming from? Why am I choosing differently when I respond to Avril? Why am I choosing empathy? So that's what's in it for you, what you will experience when you work with this tool. The other exciting thing is about the brain styles and how they can reduce the pain points. Like, as I said, for me, it was my relationship with others, but also it was my relationship with my big agenda, where my emotions were overtaking what's important to me. Okay, so we're going to look at how then we can minimize that impulsivity, how these two can do that. And lastly, ways to leverage brain styles to reduce conflict and enhance communication, that community, that muscle where it's about the others, not just only about myself. And therefore, how do I choose intentionally?
Okay, thanks, Bongi. So if we look at the slide now, there's a figure, a picture, okay? Is it the figure 8? Is it an infinity sign? Is it a pretzel? Is it a wave? Is it a DNA sign? What is it? We all looking at the identical object, but we all have different interpretations. And one of the reasons for this is that we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. I mean, are we seeing a vase? Are we seeing 2 people's profiles here? So we all view things differently. And that's because our brains, as Bongi mentioned, they're processing differently all the time. So what we are going to do is we're going to explore this brain profile, and that picture, your image you see there, the brain profile, is what you will receive once you do yours after the session. And we're going to break it down into the basic elements to really unpack and understand it. So it's about how your brain integrates data. So when we look, we're going to look at 3 different scales. It's what does our brain naturally focus on? How do we make decisions? And then what motivates or drives our brain? So if we look at this first one, we're looking at the focus, okay? How do you integrate cognitive and emotional data? So you'll see there are 2 extremes here. There's the rational and there's emotional. So what does this mean? So when we're looking at the rational side, at the extreme, it means that people are so data-driven that they may ignore emotions. So this, please, just to understand here, this is not about how we behave. This is what our brain is noticing. So people that are on that rational side are people that can almost be considered at times tone deaf, because it's about what they're saying that's important to them. They will hear the words that somebody's saying. They will notice the facts of a situation. They'll walk into a room. They'll pick up on the logistics of the situation. On the opposite side, we've got our more emotionally dominant people. Those people are noticing the emotions. They are picking up what comes behind the words. So in other words, when somebody talks, they're going to notice the tone of voice that is being used. They may not even hear what is being said if that tone doesn't make them feel comfortable. They will walk into a room. They're going to pick up on the mood of the room. In a conversation, they're going to feel, oh, what is the mood? What is the climate? What is actually happening here. And depending on whether they are feeling safe or not, they will then connect to what is actually being said here. Now, you can be anywhere on this continuum. Does your brain prefer data that is analytical, or are you looking for the emotional? And if you are closer to the middle, it is a case that you might pick up on the mood of the room or the tone in which somebody speaks, but then more quickly, you will then go, okay, but what are they actually saying? Same as on the rational side, the people that are more moderate on rational, they're going to hear what is said, but they might then, when they take a beat, go, okay, but how was it said? So in this lies huge potential for conflict, for misunderstanding, because as some of my clients actually say, is when the rational people come in hot and they come in and they just give an instruction and they will just walk into a room, they won't connect first, and they just start dishing out what needs to be done, by when, by who. The more dominant emotional people are hearing that tone, they're hearing that really bah, 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 coming across really hard. So when they hear that, they can take offense to it. It's like when you get an email sent and it's all in caps lock, the person shouting at me. So I don't see or hear what is being said. I just pick up on the tone of how it's being said. The rational, more dominant people are also feeling a bit frustrated because they're going, well, why do I have to do this connection first? Why do we actually have to have this emotional connection? I've got a task to do. I want to do it, and I'm telling them how to do it. So there can be a lot of conflict that develops here and a lot of misunderstanding, because if your filter is predominantly emotional, that's what your brain's looking for. It's craving emotional data. But if your filter is more on the rational, it's just craving facts, it wants analytics, and it's not going to pick up on what goes behind that. So when somebody says to you, how are you feeling? And you go, I'm fine. The rational person hears fine. Ooh, carries on, no problem. The more dominant emotional person is portraying emotion and feeling rather than using the words to describe where they come. So I'd be very interested. Obviously, Bongi, Kerry, and I work with a lot of people, and we get to experience what this is like for people. So I think, Kerry, you had quite a nice example of a situation that you might want to share.
So it's more industry specific in that I've been doing work with engineers for many years now. So probably 15 years I've been doing an accredited EQ course for them. And in that work, I've come to really understand the mind of the engineer. And many of them come to the EQ course because they've been told to go there. But actually, the stereotypical engineer is somebody very much rational focused. So that focus that Avril's showing you on a sliding scale of moving towards the right emotional, moving towards the left there rational. Mostly when we profile engineers, they come up on the rational side, and they've gone into the profession because they're comfortable with that, and it's a good space for them. So it naturally shows up, and that leads to so much. So just think of your own industry now, what industry you're in. Often financial also often goes to the left side. So we sort of go into an industry that makes us feel comfortable. And although we have others in that industry on that sliding scale, we can get that more stereotypical approach to a profession. So that's an interesting one.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Kerry. While you were saying that, actually, I thought of the medical profession. Because for any of you, I'm really sorry if occasionally my camera bounces. I've had a hip replacement, so I'm balancing my computer on a cushion on my legs. But if you think, often surgeons as well are people that come in really direct, and people go, oh, their bedside manner is really bad. They focus on the facts and the details of what they need to do and how they need to do it. But for many of us going into that situation, we are quite in an emotional brain. So we're looking for that connection and that safety in terms of that. So a big opportunity here for you to recognize, are you picking up on the rational data, or are you picking up on the emotional data? And to check in with yourself and say, if I am more dominant rationally, particularly when you get your brain profile, to ask yourself the question, is there potentially data that is available to me that I'm missing, that comes in the form of emotional data? If I'm on the emotional side, am I maybe tuning in only to emotions and missing the words and the meaning that is actually sitting there. You know, when someone's giving an instruction and it is very direct, is to understand maybe they are a really rational brain. So it's just about what they say, not how they say it. So, and it comes back to that people will forget what you say, but they never forget how you make them feel. So I think that's quite a nice thing for the rational people to remember. But it's, again, we can desensitize ourselves if we do feel we're too strong on the emotional and we're only picking up on the emotional data. So
And also, Avril, there also, just to note, there's no good or bad. It isn't better to be on the rational or better to be on the emotional. It's actually the awareness that counts here. So knowing, as Avril was saying, there's a whole lot you can tap into, that yes, you love rational data, or yes, you love emotional data, and it's your comfortable place. But awareness allows you to look and say, what else do I need to tap into?
100%. And again, even when we will talk to teams more, when we get through all of these, we don't want our whole team on one side or the other, because then we have an imbalance. We really are looking for this balance so that we can tap into all the data that's available. So now we look at the second scale, and this is how our brain makes decisions. How do we balance risk and opportunity? If we are more on the evaluative side, people on the evaluative side will work really hard to avoid risk. They are very risk adverse. They like a lot more routine. They like safety, even if sometimes that safety might not be that comfortable. It's kind of almost that rather the devil I know. And having spent a lot of time on this side, because in corporate, I was almost forced into more consequential thinking because I was told that I knee-jerked a lot. Often the first reaction to any form of change from somebody on the extreme evaluative is no. Don't change it. Let me stay with what I know. Don't like sudden change. Don't like to take a risk. And it doesn't mean that you will spend a huge amount of time necessarily weighing it out, because the first reaction might just be no, I'm not going to try that, not going to do it. On the other hand, we've got the people that are more on the innovative side. These people love change. They love novelty. They love jumping in and doing, testing it, trying it, experimenting with it. Will love a risk. They're kind of like, risk? What's risk? Oh, we just jump in and we just do it. So it's really interesting to understand, is your brain trying to protect more, or is it innovating? Am I looking at the reasons why I shouldn't do something, or am I looking at the opportunities on why I should or could do something? And we've got to be really careful and very, very aware of this one, because this can be incredibly stunting to our growth. To give you an example, a couple of years ago, I was asked to go and do some work in the Cayman Islands and Canada. And it was a big opportunity, obviously. And I still remember getting the opportunity, and then my first thing in my head was all the reasons why I shouldn't do it, because I was thinking they won't relate to me. It's going to be really challenging. How are these American Canadians and multicultural people? What are they going to think of all of it? So I was coming up with all the reasons why not to do it. And I actually I was walking with a friend of mine, and I was telling her about it. And she said to me, "Are you actually stark raving mad?" She said, "If you don't go, I'm going to go. You've just got to do it. You've got to put aside all the reasons why you see not to do it and look at the opportunities and jump in." So that is an example of how your evaluativeness can sometimes hold you back. There were so many opportunities, and as a lot of you know, I traveled extensively now, but I had to force myself out of my comfort zone to realize that my high evaluative ability and tendency was actually holding me back, because I wasn't allowing myself to grow. During COVID, I thought, that's it, my business has come to an end. 6 seconds forced us and said, we had to give back, and we had to do these virtual webinars. I was absolutely terrified. Really, I practiced with people. I nearly drove them insane. And now I work mostly outside of South Africa, and a lot of it is on virtual. So being forced to do it. But what happens if we just open ourselves up, if we're highly evaluative to the possibilities? Then we get the people that are on the innovative that may jump in really quickly, jump in and do without considering the consequences of the actions, without stopping to pause and go, what are the costs and benefits of where I'm at? So, the question is, are you highly evaluative where you are resisting change and wanting to stay in the know? Or are you somebody looking for opportunity, craving change, and in fact can get quite bored if there's too much routine and not enough challenge in that? And again, what does it look like in your partnership, in your marriage, if you've got one jumping in and doing and the other one's going, no, 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 roadblock to risk? Or in your teams, if a team's very weighted to one side or the other, we either not going to grow and change at all, or we might jump in and keep making the same mistakes over and over again because we're not evaluating. So again, for yourself personally, it's recognizing, what does my decision making look like? Am I going on this evaluative side, or am I more wanting to take the chance, taste the risk, and try it? What do my relationships look like as a result of this? What does my success look like as a result of this?
Avril, there's a question from Craig in the chat, and I think you'd want to speak to this one. Would someone on the extreme evaluative side be a higher risk of burnout?
It's a really good question, and not necessarily. There could be, if anything, what springs to mind is on the evaluative side, there's the risk will come from potentially the analysis paralysis and overthinking everything, which could slow you down, which could put more pressure on you because you're not as effective, maybe because you're getting stuck and you're not moving forward. People on the innovative side would also be potentially prone because they're so busy jumping in and doing that they're not stopping to pause and evaluate and going, oh, is this the train I should be in? Where am I at with that? But it's a really nice question, Craig, because when you see the combination of the three scales we talk about, you will see where the tendency or which brain profiles are more prone to that burnout. So let's flag that to maybe give a more conclusive answer later on. Okay. All right. Are we happy to move on? Any ladies want to add anything at this stage? So the third profile, the third scale, comes from this drive. What motivates or excites your brain? What really gets your brain going? People that are more on the practical side are much more into getting results done in the here and now. They're going to make the list. They're going to tick that list off. They're going to get it all done. And it's like, how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? When does it need to be done by? What do we need to do that? And let's jump in and let's do it. People on the idealistic side are a lot more about the bigger picture, the future focus, to the point where they may not actually pay attention to day-to-day practicalities. So, and I have done this profile multiple times, and this is the only scale that never changes for me. It is my absolute nemesis. I'm always on the idealistic, and one day when I grow up, I'm going to learn to be practical. And it can even be, to give you a simple example, because I know that my colleagues are also going to share, is that if I take even in my personal life, if we decide we're going to have a function, I'll say, okay, great. We're going to have a bra. I send a message out to everybody. My sister's on the call, so she's going to laugh. I send the bra and go, come for a bra on Saturday. Fantastic. And my head is all sorted. And then I start getting the questions from the real practical people. What time? What should we bring? What are we doing? How are we doing? Or say, I don't know. I haven't even thought about it. It's like, so the idealistic people are very much big picture, thinking about ideas and the concept. And unless the big picture or the idea excites them, they may not even be able to make it practical. They may not be able to operationalize what is happening. The practical people, on the other hand, may be so in the results in the here and now, they may not look up and go, but where are we going long term, and may only be living short term. So I know when Bongi, Kerry, and I started working together and we sort of started seeing each other's patterns, Bongi and I both assumed that Kerry was very practical because she was always the one sending us the notes, doing whatever, because we could talk for quite a while between the three of us. And surprise, surprise, she's idealistic. So, Kerry, I really want you to share with us how, when you're idealistic, you show up as so practical.
I think this is actually also the power and importance of actually profiling a team of people you work with, because I get my energy from the idealistic. So drive has a lot to do with your energy. And I get my energy from that, from thinking future, big picture. But I know that as a coping mechanism, if I don't have good systems in place and I don't have everything rolling, I can be completely chaotic. So in terms of managing myself, which is what EQ is about, self-awareness and then self-management, I've got to have some very good structures in place. If I travel, I've got that folder, plastic folder with everything lined up, everything done. And if you were to see me in an airport, you'd go, whoa, that's like super organized. But it is a coping mechanism. It's not where I get my energy from. Okay. And I think that's the reason why it's so important not to make assumptions about the people that you work with. Is Avril will show you later, there's actually a team dashboard, and you actually need to know where people fit. So because that's where they get their energy. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, that if we don't know what energizes us, we don't know how to feed our brain, because the why is really important for idealistic people. So if you have somebody in your team going, but why are we doing that? You have to share their purpose with them, because I know when I was in corporate, I hijacked many initiatives because people told me what to do and they didn't tell me why it was important to do it. So I just, subconsciously, I shut down and I just didn't do it. The drive is also, when you do get your profiles, you'll see they're different bubble sizes. If your drive bubble is your biggest bubble, it means you've got at the time of taking this assessment, you had a lot of energy. If it's your smallest bubble, it means you were really lacking in that energy. Bongi, I don't know if you want to share here or just now when I expose you to everybody.
No, I will share in relation to also the question that was asked earlier on. When I started in 2018, when I did my first assessment, that I was at one extreme. So I was an inventor. I was one extreme when it comes to decisions. So I was not necessarily stressed or having burnout. And I think the reason wasn't so much about that, but it was the disconnection of not understanding why I'm showing up, why my emotions are so entangled, and not necessarily connecting to the big picture. And yet, when I did the assessment, what came out was that, as Avril said, that I am also idealistic. And therefore, for me, when I saw that assessment, was how do I learn to move into taking actions? The other thing for me that I want to highlight, that in 2018, I just started my business. I think it was 2 or 3 years old. So you can imagine, for me, it was important to come up with ideas, to be innovative, to be pro-change and try everything, because I want to make this thing work. But the emotions are just not showing up the way that I want to when it comes to making decisions, because there was this disconnection between why am I feeling this way in relation to what I need to achieve. So there was a lot of work. You will see when you see when Avril does expose me to you, ladies and gentlemen, that there has been a shift. We'll talk into that. But for me, was also understanding the context of what's happening in your life when you take the assessment, and then understand how everything links together. That for me was a nice reflection when I looked at my 2018 assessment, that this is what was happening in my life and I needed to be innovative. And of course, I was, one big area was to work on my focus when it comes to picking up emotions, which wasn't something that was strong on me. So it was very interesting to see that and be able to see how powerful this tool is.
And you know what's amazing with this? We work with teams and we're often physically in the room with them. We get people to line up and stand on each extreme to understand. And I was working with one was so funny, because all the salespeople were standing on the idealistic side, and all the operational people who had to deliver on what sales were selling were on the practical side. And they looked across the room and they went, oh my goodness, now we understand why we get such bad instruction, because sales come back and say, we've sold it and this is what you need to do. And they go, but what is the deadline? How many do you need? What are the stats? Or we don't know, we didn't have the details on that. So it was really interesting to understand, so that the ops people could almost give sales a checklist of, this is what we need to make it practical, because it's recognizing that naturally that person's not going to be able to go and do it. So yeah, huge value in this. So these 3 scales then combine into 8 different profiles, okay? And this is where we start to get the distinguishing factor between these profiles and how they work, how they show up, and what actually gets seen and noticed by it. So I will go into more detail into each of the profiles. But as I said, what I'm going to do is expose Bongi. She's very brave to do this. And when Bongi did her first profile in 2018, she was an inventor. So she was rational, innovative, and idealistic. And now she is a strategist. So you can see there, and her biggest bubble is focus, which means she now, even though she's on the rational side, has a lot of emotional data available to her. So this is her area of strength. She is marginally more evaluative, and she is definitely idealistic. So, Bongi, how is this showing up for you? What can you share with us here?
So I just want to say to anyone, and I'm not going to make assumption this is your first time to do assessment. If it is, one of the things that I have learned working with assessment with individuals is the ability to suspend judgment and be curious and just go in there and excited to learn and unlearn. So when I had my first one, I was my own worst critic in terms of, oh my goodness, that means I don't care about others. I don't care about people's emotions. I thought I was a caring human being. So there's some of those dialogues that take place. Suspend judgment and focus on this assessment, because it helps you to understand where you are in your story and how to evolve it. So that's one big thing. But one of the other things that I want to highlight here is the self-awareness that took place for me. As I said, when I first saw it, was not happy with some of the areas, and what was important for me is the key thing is to change the story, because now this tool is giving me a platform and an opportunity to change my story around. So moving from self-awareness to self-regulation in terms of what is it that I need to change if these are the things that I want to achieve in my story. And one of the things that I mentioned earlier was that I really want to be driven from a place of being intentional with my work, with my relationship with others, and my sense of well-being. So those were the key things, the areas that I was driving. And what's so powerful, again, when we work with individuals with this tool is that we help you to understand what are the goals that you have that are tangible to help you leverage on this assessment. The one thing that some of the things that I'm taking away from this, Avril, is that I can see there is a shift. When I look at my previous, no one can see it, but I was more on the extreme when it comes to being rational. I'm more in the middle, as you can see here. But on the innovative side, one of the things that I had observed with myself, I can come up with ideas a lot. So that's what I mean about self-regulation, because self-awareness is about, I saw these patterns and I was like, I need to change some of the patterns because they're not helping me. To Avril's point that you experience paralysis analysis, as an innovator and as an innovative person, I would just come up with ideas and no action, ideas galore. And I thought that I was being effective, but I wasn't, because I was not implementing anything. And then what I started to do is to do evaluation, and you can see it's on the middle, which is a big, huge plus for me, because that means I am doing something with the ideas. I even practically, I will encourage you, I even have a file, because that's how I'm managing this pattern. So I have a file of ideas. So I have an idea, I'm going to plug it there, because I then leave away the things that I want to implement. That was my pattern that was taking place. So now I have a system, you have an idea, you are busy with another one right now, plug it. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow, because you're trying to manage the practical side of me, because that was what was taking place in terms of learning this behavior, that I need to be practical. But I didn't realize that I was slowing myself when it comes to practicality, because then I would want to implement all of them at once. So there's some of the things that I've learned from the previous assessment to this one, and the shift for me was the biggest important thing for me here that I want to highlight. If you're someone who gets stuck in the self-awareness stage, where you are really looking at the patterns and you know your patterns from, if someone says what your patterns, when you are in conflict, I freeze. I was one of those people that I'll read another book about conflict, and I'll read another, I will follow Carrie, who is a conflict specialist, I was not taking action. So if you're one of those, one of the biggest things, and what's beautiful about this tool is move from self-awareness, know the patterns, self-regulate. That means take action, choose yourself. What is it that I'm going to do differently? And that's what I did at best of times. And of course, for me, is the action that I'm taking aligned to this behavior? Last thing that I want to say is, one of the other things that's beautiful about this tool, and if I'm jumping the gun, Avril, please, I apologize, is learning to understand what we call shadows, those challenges that we have that can be an overused strength. Paralysis analysis is an overused strength. It's understanding them and say, how do I work around them so that I can still deliver my results? And one thing that I want to say to you, when you see them, they are not a negative thing. They are more to help you to say, how do I need to manage them when they show up? So for example, for me, I know paralysis analysis, what I do is I set a deadline because I can over-research or I can overgive. In fact, all of us, as I understand, are overgivers. So we've learned to say, okay, what do we need to do to minimize the overgiving so that we don't surprise people, make them unsafe when we share the information that we share in this platform. So some of the things that as a collective, but also as an individual, that this tool helps practically on a day-to-day basis, how to manage my performance, how to manage my work so that I bring the best in terms of the work that I do as individuals with our work and the impact that we want to make in terms of our performance.
Thanks, Bongi. So yeah, absolutely. You're going to see the profiles now, but an inventor would have been rational, innovative, and idealistic. That's why Bongi was getting stuck in these ideas, because it was the innovation and idealistic part all the time. But in having understood that, it doesn't mean that your profile necessarily changes. Bongi's still idealistic, and so is Carrie, and so am I. But what you do, because you're aware of it, you put things in place to become more practical. And you can see the asset for Bongi now is decision making, and her other asset is relationships network. So that connection has also come. Some of you, when you get it, you might have it as an opportunity, and that's saying this is something that if you understand your brain better, you can actually convert into an asset. So thank you for sharing, Bongi, and for making yourself vulnerable there. So Bongi's spoken about hers and the strategists. So strategists are precise, careful, future-orientated, but they are sometimes so focused on finding the right solution, they may not move forward. They may also miss some of the emotional data. Sorry, I've actually said attention to detail, idealistic. Put the wrong word on there. The sage, on the other hand, and this is Carrie, and is caring, protective, reflective, and long-term focused. Sages care about the big questions. They like to think about life's meaning, and they again may prefer to contemplate rather than to act. So now you might wonder where I am. I've moved between these two profiles because the only difference here is really between the rational and the emotional and the focus. So what did this mean for us as a team? Lots of chitter chatter. We had gone to a meeting and be on a meeting for 2 hours, chatting about all the ideas and whatever. And then like, oh, okay, so what are we going to do with this? And when are we going to do it by? And how are we going to do it, you know? So think about now if this, and Kerry might want to add something as well, but if this is your team, and I actually worked with a team that we were doing a change initiative, and the people were put into teams, and the one team just didn't move forward. And the reason why they didn't move forward is because this kind of is what their profile looked like. So they had lots of ideas, but they were evaluating until the cows came home, overusing that consequential thinking. So no action was actually taken. So the risk is if you have a team like this without action people, you actually don't move forward. Kerry, I don't know if you want to add something to that.
And I think sometimes the people you most need are the ones that drive you the craziest. So in this instance, you'll show us what a deliverer would do to our team and really add so much value. But it's the very trigger when somebody tries to actually do that. But I think you're probably wondering, I mean, we're talking about our profiles and stuff. We're using ourselves as like a case study because it's really powerful to see, as Bongi was sharing, that it's not just a transactional thing. You do your profile and it's done. Okay, cool. I'm a strategist. Done. I'm a sage. Is the growth that comes when you are curious and open-minded. And you can see the excitement when Bongi was sharing hers of her journey, is that that's where the real depth comes. It's like a simple one-pager, but actually in it comes this wonderful, just wonderful insights on how you show up. And that comes from your openness to learning. And we do hope that we're modeling this for you, and that when you get your own profile, you can start such a powerful journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we take like the strategist that shadow that Bongi spoke about as well, and I think that we're bringing up here, and why we need another sort of brain profile sometimes, is that the strategist's shadows are perfectionistic, can be harsh, analysis paralysis, and as a result of that can become uninspiring, which is exactly what Bongi noticed and thought, what do I need to do here? And the sage can be unrealistic, pessimistic, and Kerry and I both hate this, impractical and rigid. But we change adverse. So yes, we can be a bit stuck in that. So yeah, we don't always like what we see, but it's taking it and saying, so how do I change that? How do I take the strengths and really embrace those, and take the shadows and go, how can I make those work better for me, and not let them show up as a shadow? So let's just say now we put a deliverer into the mix. Okay. So now we've got a deliverer, and deliverers are action orientated, practical problem solvers who will figure it out. You need something done, you just call the deliverer. Even if you don't need something done, the deliverer is going to find a way to actually do it anyway. They jump in and they want to get into the results.
If you think you're a deliverer, put it in the chat. If you think you're one of those that is action orientated, grab stuff, we'd love to see in the chat.
Orientated, get in, stuck in, all about the job, may knock over people on the way, but the job will get done. It's about the job, want the detail, have the list, tick the list off, make sure it's all done. So we've got our sage, a combination of the sage, so the strategist here is concerned with people, the big picture, want to contemplate, want to think about all of things. Now we put these two together. And funny enough, this was our director of 6 seconds. Jane was a deliverer and I was a sage when we first started working together, gosh, I don't know, 14 years ago. And I would arrive to facilitate. She'd come from Dubai to facilitate, and she'd say to me, how are you? And I'd go, I'm fine. Or if something wasn't, I start going into it, and I can see her eyes glaze over. She's like, okay, we need to get done, and we need to get things done. But the thing was that together we were really powerful because we were mirror images of each other. We complemented each other. But like Kerry says, those people can make us feel uncomfortable because we gravitate to people often to who's more like us. But divergence and diversity in a team is what really makes things pump, you know? So the sage will look at the deliverer and see them as pushy, impatient, insensitive, and controlling. They've got no filters. They just say it the way it is, the tone deaf, you know? So that is how a deliverer may be seen, but they're getting things done. So again, it's weighing out, you know, are people seeing the strengths in you, or are they seeing the shadow? And the deliverer is looking at the sage and going, seriously, people, can we actually move forward? You are so stuck in your ways, and we can't just worry about the people all the time. The job needs to get done, you know? So that's how we can get that clash and that conflict. But also we can use these profiles to diffuse conflict, because when we understand it's about the way someone's processing and it's not personal, it becomes so powerful, because we take the personal attack out and go, oh, it's not about me. They're not being horrible to me. They don't dislike me. That's just how they are and how they show up. So really awesome tool for team building and for conflict management as well. So if we now look, these are our different profiles, okay? And what I've done is I've set them up here in front, that each profile is next to its mirror image. So we have a scientist who is accurate, careful, precise, practical, and hands-on. They are rational, they're evaluative, practical. What is the potential shadow that can come from that? They could become detail-obsessed, inflexible, critical, and judgmental, because information has to be right. It's not about connecting, not about people. On the mirror image, we've got the visionary, who is passionate, transformative, forward-thinking, energetic. But to other people, particularly to people that are more on the practical side and the evaluative side, they can come across as quite overwhelming, quite chaotic, impractical, and directive, because it's just cool. We got to try this and we got to do this. And again, I've worked with an MD who is exactly like this, and he was stressing his team out because he had so many ideas and they just couldn't process them. Then we have the inventor, which is what Bongi was initially, the analytical, creative, open and imaginative, lots of ideas, not really interested in the connecting part. They want to live in imagination in these ideas. What can happen? They can be seen as chaotic, impractical, antisocial, and preoccupied because they're lost in ideas. They don't have a chance to connect when they're so busy thinking about these things. Then we have mirror image of that, the guardian. They're caring, careful, they're pragmatic, and protective. If you go to war, take the guardian, because they will stand by you even if you're wrong. They are the champion of the underdog. So what could their shadow potentially be? They can be unrealistic, they can be pessimistic, and they could be uninspiring because they're so careful, and also prosaic. So again, the guardian, don't think it sounds like the guardian would be soft and cuddly. Let me tell you, they will come out like a pit bull if you mess with their people. So you've got to know that and understand that, and view that profile is also to understand that concept. So here we've already touched on the three. We've spoken about the deliverer, that is that task orientated, can be pushy, will run over people, break rules if need be because of this very high innovative side, and will get it done. I've spoken about the sage, so I'm not going to repeat that. And I've spoken about the strategist. So what is the energizer? Okay, we actually had to rename the energizer because it was called the superhero, and everybody wanted to be a superhero. Why? They are committed, they're creative, they're real world dynamic. So they're emotional dominant, they are innovative, and they're practical. They want to get it done. They will, you ask them to do something, they'll say yes first and figure out how later. They really want to just jump in and do. They have an incredible amount of energy. But what is the risk to this profile that is just doing, wanting to save, wanting to rescue? So let's have a look here. The can do it all profile. And this comes back to Craig, I think's question. High risk of burnout in this profile, okay? Because not only are they doing like a deliverer does, they also trying to do and take care of all the people. So they can suffer from martyrdom. They are very competitive. And whenever we do in-person training, we do games. Oh my goodness, don't get in the way of an energizer. They will win that game at all costs. But even though they're on the emotion, you can see here, they're emotionally dominant, so they're connecting, they still have insensitivity because they need to do it all, and their task orientation sometimes outweighs that connection, and that takes away that sensitivity side. So these are just snapshots of these profiles, and obviously you are going to get your own profile, and you're going to be able to have a look at it. But these profiles are building up to what is really important, and what Bongi is going to take us through is, what is it we're actually wanting to achieve in life? What do we want from our lives?
Thank you, Avril. And I think just having experienced what you've experienced so far, is there's a deep understanding, and Kerry mentioned that these tools generally 6 seconds tools, most of them, if not all of them, are about to move you from transactional experiences with assessment tools to being transformational, where you are taking tangible steps. So EQ has always, and this is my experience being in corporate, is seen as fluffy, soft, nice to have. Let's take them, for that training, soft skills. It's very hard skills, including the results. EQ is tangible. It's got tangible results, because one of the things we strongly believe in is that emotions drive people and people drive performance. So with understanding how to be smarter with your feelings allows you to be able to perform in all areas of your life. And if you look at these areas that we've highlighted, if you think about what fulfills me as a human being, is having a very grounded sense of quality of life, well-being, effective, and relationships. So what this does when you have learned to build this EQ muscle over a period of time and taking those steps that you are comfortable and are safe to do, is that you build the capacity. If you look at quality of life, is learning to have the capacity to accomplish meaningful goals and being able to feel appreciation about your own life. So all of us, we want that. So this is what helps you when you are able to understand emotions drive how you perform with life. Well-being is one of them, where we have the capacity to prioritize and manage our stress. Going back to that question from Craig, that once I've learned this is what takes place, once I practice and apply the skills, this is what happens. Same thing with having a sense of effectiveness, where we have the capacity to motivate others. That's what effectiveness is about, right? Am I able to get to my team, as I think it was you, Kero, mentioned about the teams, where you understand what drives others, what motivates others. So when you have built that muscle, you have that ability, therefore, to motivate and inspire them to be, to take the most effective decisions, because you're able to have your access to your thinking capacity of the brain. You're able to manage that emotional hijack. As one of the big things that I've been speaking to you about in one of my big aha is the relationships with myself, but with others, and my work and the impact. That capacity for me is being able to say, I'm going to be mutually caring here when I'm in connecting with Kerry and Avril, that to increase that sense of belonging in our teams. Think employee engagement. When you've built this EQ muscle, this is the direct impact that it has for your business, that it has. I've seen one of my clients from an HR perspective. This is what it drives, these tools, that they build that sense of fulfillment, that your success and happiness lies in you. This is what this tool gives us, whether it's personal or professional. Okay.
So I'm going to wrap up and give you the next steps on how to actually do your profile yourself. And then we're going to do a Q&A. So if you've got any questions, as you're starting to think about those, you can put them in the chat. We've done 3 collaboration webinars now, the 3 of us. And we've had a lot of fun doing it, I'm just saying. And it's really inspired us. I'm off tomorrow I've got 60 people I'm doing brain profiles on, because I suddenly thought, oh, how exciting is that? Let me do brain profiles again. So you'll see of the 3 webinars, the first one and the second one, if you joined us for those, this Chaos to Clarity was our first one, and then Fury to Focus. They dealt with coping skills for your pain points, and better understanding your pain points, and then being able how to manage them. But this one now goes into, really, it's a snapshot. You're going to get a chance to do your own profile. And it's the science behind EQ, this one. So it really goes into, people always say, but can the fluffy stuff be measured? Absolutely, it can be. And it's the beginning of a really cool journey for you. So that is, it's like going behind the scenes of those pain points, as Bongi always likes to tell us. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. And then just the depth. I'm hoping that the time that you've spent with us now, you're starting to see the depth that there is in these tools. So they're scientifically validated. When you do the questionnaire, you'll see it's quite a comprehensive set of questions. So you're going to get probably 70, is it, Avril, or 77 questions? 76 questions. Okay, that wasn't my number, 76. So 76 questions. So it seems like a lot just to give you a one-pager. But what you're really doing is you're actually doing the full EQ assessment when you do those questions. And out of that, we draw this one-pager profile. And Avril's been talking you through the 3 scales, the focus, decisions, and drive. And those 3 scales, depending on where you are, puts you into these 8 different brain styles, and puts you into one of the brain styles. So Avril's mentioned the bubble size and stuff. So it sounds like there's a lot in this. There is. And you'll be given an opportunity to download, once you've done your profile, there's actually a link and there's a 20-page understanding your profile. And it also helps you because the 8 brain styles are in there. So it also helps you engage with whatever brain style you are. What are the other 7? Okay, so the kind of information we've been sharing with you now is actually in a PDF document for you. And then obviously if you do your team dashboard, you start to use it in your teams. So through that, Avril did highlight that there are assets and opportunities. You start to realize there's areas for growth, and they are directly connected to what Bongi was sharing about the life outcomes.
Also, Kerry, just to add that in that interpretation guide, which is so valuable, it actually tells you, if you go to the page, it's between pages 10 and 18 or each of the profiles, how best to work with other profiles. So it actually says, this is how you show up and how best to do it, and then how do you work with different brain profiles. So it's really valuable as well.
So it's giving you the tips. So if you weren't very quick at note taking while we were talking, you don't need to be, because actually that document covers it all. So you'll see that's the profile that we've referred to that you're going to get. And we're going to give you a link now in the chat. And by the 10th of November, you must have completed it. So we're giving you 5 days and then that project closes. It's a gift from 6 Seconds to say those who are interested, please do your profile. You'll get that 1-pager. And just remember, as we've illustrated so clearly today, it's a snapshot in time. Okay, so neuroplasticity says we can hardwire and rewire our brains. So knowing where we're at and then being able to do it. And one of those in the chat, I saw Adele say she's done a workshop in 2020 and she wonders if she was still the guardian. So that's exactly it. You may not still be the guardian. It is something that can change. It is a self-report, so bear that in mind when you're doing it. It's not other people evaluating you. You're doing it as a self-report, and it's really the beginning of a powerful journey for you. Find a quiet 20 minutes. You won't need a full 20 minutes, but just find a quiet 20 minutes, knowing you can get through all the questions. And the mood, in terms of the mood, make sure that you are in your everyday mood. You know, don't do it when you get back from a day and it's hectic and you're grumpy. Find yourself a quiet space. Okay. And thanks, Avril.
Sorry.
So the profile guide we referred to is something you'll be able to download. So post-assessment, what do you need to do once you've done your assessment? You can download that profile guide and you can start to do this deep reflection. Holding up the mirror is what that profile is doing for you. Look in it, start to identify some actions. We are here to help you. So I've said there, you can unpack it in a one-on-one consultation with any of us. And a coaching journey is something that this particular profile is one when we work, all 3 of us work as coaches with individuals. We often pick this tool to start that journey because it's a really lovely opening in terms of where you're going. And then just the power of connecting with others. I'm hoping you're getting curious for your own profile, but also for the people, your colleagues, the people you're working with, or even in your family. You know, so those saying, yes, I know my sister's an extreme deliverer, I read in the chat there. So yes, perhaps, but actually don't make assumptions. Sometimes I hope that my story showed you I look super organized, but I'm doing it and it's draining all of my energy, when actually I'd rather be collecting new ideas and doing those things. So just the journey, as I say, start to connect with others, and that's also a great next step.
You know, just on that connecting, Kerry, what's really interesting is one of my clients said to me a few years back, he said, do you do marriage counseling? So I said, hell no. He said, because in him having just understood his own profile, his wife hadn't done it, in him understanding his profile changed his marriage. And I know it just in being cognizant of mine, and obviously I profiled my family on guinea pigs half the time and profiling, and you learn to recognize those differences, but we can't change anybody else. We can only change ourselves, and that's where our power lies. And as you said, that neuroplasticity, when we know what we want to change and why we want to change, we can do it. And then as a consequence of that, the relationship changes as well.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, while Kerry was talking, I put the link in the chat but we also will email the link. But if you can copy it off now, that's great. Otherwise, we will email it to you. But we mentioned the team dynamic and the different profiles. So this brain profile is one of them. The brain talent profiles is a brain discovery profile. We haven't even mentioned brain talents here. There's 18 apps that make for success in our life. And the team dashboard, which is the one down the bottom here, really awesome tool to use. It gives the average EQ of a team. It shows if the team are tightly aligned or not. It shows the mix of brain profiles, lists all the brain talents, and then all the outcomes as well, in terms of if this team is incredibly high on effectiveness, what could possibly be compromised for that, and often it's health or relationships or balance. So incredible tools that are here. We haven't even touched on the leadership report, but just showing you, this is a great entry one, really nice one. It's simple, it is actionable, and it is a psychometric A test, which actually means that even if you can't afford a whole debrief, you can do a profile and you can read the interpretation guide and go on to it. There isn't a legal requirement for a debrief, whereas the leadership report requires a full debrief.
Yeah. So if you've got questions, please, we will stay on the call. So we allocated an hour and a half, where an hour is us talking about this, but we're going to allow you to unmute yourselves now. And those of you who do need to go, if you want to just take the link and get going with it. But those who have questions, know you can reach out to us after this, but we are here now if you would like to raise any points. You can unmute yourself. I think we muted you successfully at the beginning. I'm allowing you to unmute now. So if you have got some, you can either type them in the chat, or you can just unmute and share.